Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. I will dance with Squid Game spoilers at some point in this episode. Consider yourself forewarned. On Late Night, Seth Meyers discussed a new poll which found that Americans are losing trust in Joe Biden's ability to handle the coronavirus. Seth said, "Really? Who's handling it well? We're all losing it. The Brady Bunch came on the other day and I thought it was a Zoom meeting. I don't trust anyone who's handling it well. When I'm at a ShopRite and there's an old guy with no mask on just smiling and touching all the cans, whistling a happy tune, I don't think, oh, I wish he was in charge." Let's talk about Saturday Night Live. I thought it was fantastic. I have a question, though. Is Kate McKinnon even on Saturday Night Live? I know she's in the credits, but I haven't seen Kate McKinnon in any sketches. Have you? Bowen Yang, by the way, steals the show every single time that guy's on screen. He crushes. He might be the MVP. I like the new guy that does the impressions, but right now, Bowen Yang, I mean, every time he comes on, just his presence alone, I start smiling, and he always makes me laugh. Love it. Rami Malek was this week's host. I thought the opening sketch where they made fun of the NFL and the John Gruden scandal was pretty entertaining. The Bug Assembly sketch where Bowen Yang played Daddy Longlegs, that's a perfect example of he just crushed it. His line, "What does Daddy Longlegs eat? Boys, boys, boys." Oh my God, that was hilarious. I warned you about the spoilers. Squid Game. Yeah, they did a sketch about Squid Game, and I felt bad for anybody who hasn't watched all of Squid Game because they spoil the hell out of it. They recounted Squid Game as a country song, and the look on Rami's face as he tries to convert Korean won is gold. I can't tell you how many times watching Squid Game, I bet you did this too, I know my buddies did, kept taking out our phones and like, how much money are they actually playing for and converting? Yep. Pete Davidson and Rami Malek have a terrific chemistry, writes Vulture, and a movie starring those two would probably print money. We'll talk about their chemistry in a second. The Prince auditions. Rami Malek and Kenan Thompson played themselves trying to get the role of Prince in a biopic. The money joke there. Kenan, you're in costume, but you look nothing like Prince. Loved it. Celebrity School Game Show. Thought this was awesome. If you missed it, in the sketch, Pete Davidson played Rami Malek. In the sketch, Rami Malek played Pete Davidson, and Rami's Pete is pretty darn good. It was just an excuse to have people pull out their impressions. Bowen Yang just doing a really basic George Takei. The same George Takei that you and your friends do where you just go, oh my. But it was hilarious. Loved that sketch entirely. Weekend Update was okay. Second half of the show, not as strong. The mattress store sketch, okay. The one with Angelo, Daniel Craig showed up in a sketch. Cecily Strong and Daniel Craig are excited to see a singer named Angelo. Angelo is a character played by Aristotle Athari, one of the new cast members on SNL, and Vulture points out that Aristotle had played that character at Just for Laughs' New Faces. How many times have I told you to check out the New Faces? You should check them out, and they're on Just for Laughs' YouTube channel. Do that. I actually need to catch up on it myself. Been busy. I thought it was a fantastic episode. Saturday Night Live so far this season been pretty good. From the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, they had somebody at Jim Gaffigan's tapings last week. Friend of the Daily Comedy News, Dan Bublitz, said he was at the show. He posted this on the Facebook group. If you want to chime in on comedy, do what Dan Bublitz Jr. Comedy did. Go to Daily Comedy News Podcast group on Facebook, and you can post whatever you want. Dan did that, and he said Jim Gaffigan's new special is going to be pretty good. I attended one of the tapings, and his comedy has evolved a lot since Hot Pockets. That's interesting. I said, tell me more. Dan wrote, he was more topical than I was expecting, and his topical observations were spot on. Jim nailed the comparisons that he used. There was material one could tell that the pandemic and the way people have been treating and acting as a result of it really got to him. As a comic myself, some of the jokes didn't seem that original, but when you hear so many jokes, this happens a lot. I will agree with you there, Dan. In fact, on the weekly comedy thing this week, that's my show on the Live by Live app, I back-to-backed 2 bits by Ari Shaffir and George Carlin, and I'm not accusing anyone of anything here at all. Please hear me out on that. But I played a bit by Ari Shaffir about the 10 Commandments. The reason I played Ari and Carlin is in the story I read. Ari had talked about how George Carlin was someone he had not grown up listening to, but I backed their 2 bits about the 10 Commandments, and there are similar thoughts, and you see that a lot in comedy. You know, not everyone is a thief. Back to Dan Bublitz. As a comic myself, some of the jokes didn't seem that original, but when you hear so many jokes, that happens a lot. However, his perspective on the subjects were hilarious. I remember checking my watch once because I needed to use a restroom, didn't want to leave it taping, and it was 10:40. Before I knew it was 11:15, and the show was over. It went so far as it felt like he only did half an hour. I honestly think this will be the best special thus far in his career. Awesome. That's great to hear. Also, shout out to Ted Alexandro, who opened for Jim. That's a great spot for Ted. I know Ted a little bit because we have a friend in common. They went to high school together, and Ted is a great comic if you haven't checked him out. Dan, thank you very much. All right, where were we? I started out telling you what the Minneapolis Star-Tribune said about the show, but I digressed. They wrote, the veteran stand-up showed why he's a cut above the rest Friday at State Theater, where his weekend performances were taped for a Netflix special. The 55-year-old comic filled much of his 70-minute set with familiar topics: obesity, raising 5 kids, his pasty complexion. But what really stood out was material about the pandemic. Gaffigan compared the ongoing crisis to a TV show that you thought was canceled, only to discover it's been picked up by Netflix. Discovering which friends are anti-vaxxers has been like a gender reveal party for insanity. Love it. The fact that his kids went to school using the same device they play Minecraft on is the same as holding a Weight Watchers meeting at a Wendy's. Gaffigan kept his material clean, although he did make some members in the sold-out show a little uneasy when he went after marching bands. For the most part, audience members ate it up. Their reaction explained why more and more top comics are choosing to record TV specials in Minneapolis. Jeff Foxworthy will also be using the State Theater for a Netflix taping on October 30th. Speaking of Netflix specials, Theo Von's is out today. That's on Netflix. It is called Regular People. In the special, filmed at the historic Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, Theo Von shares stories of his most memorable childhood friends, offers tips on how to effectively avoid work, and recounts the time he tried to play matchmaker in his hometown. Theo is secretly popular, guys. I know this because I always check the podcast charts to see how I'm doing, and the number one stand-up podcast is almost always Theo Von. Theo Von, Regular People, on Netflix today. Today's Daily Comedy News is brought to you by All Pro Lines. That is my Tuesday go-to podcast. Kostaki Economopoulos and Aaron Hodges combine the NFL and jokes. Who doesn't like that? The guys have great chemistry. They watch some football. They think of some funny things to say. They do a light recap. But I'm there for the jokes, and I am the Carlos Mencia of promos. Let me steal some jokes from @AllProLines Twitter account, one of which is Christian McCaffrey's now on the IR. The last Christian this questionable was Jim Baker. Love it. And they also got into the, you need some setup here. You need some NFL knowledge, which Kostaki and Aaron clearly have. The knowledge you need for this next joke is the Jacksonville Jaguars played a game in London, and their coach, Urban Meyer, has recently been in some scandal stuff. The joke will reveal the scandal. Ready? Let's Mencia this. They offered Urban Meyer bangers and mash. He said, are they finger bangers and face mash? I'll take 2. You can figure out what the scandal was. All Pro Lines, wherever you get your podcast. Speaking of football, from the Green Bay Gazette, it's Packers time. Apparently, a lot of touring acts put on a Packers jersey when they play Green Bay in order to suck up to the audiences. Bert Kreische went next level. In advance of his show at the Resch Center, Bert Kreische released a video saying, with Green Bay, I'm bringing crop tops back. And it showed him trying to squeeze into a Packers jersey many sizes too small. It's a hilarious reminder that those things definitely run one size fits all. In the video, Kreische said, I said, hey, get me a Packers jersey, and this is what they got. You think I can fit in this? It's a children's Clinton Dix jersey. That's someone's name. Size small. He gets the jersey on, not without some help, and he says, I'm bringing all of me. See you there. Oh, if any Packers want to come to the show, I'd love for you to sign this jersey for me. Of course, we're going to talk Dave Chappelle, although I think the Chappelle stuff is starting finally to wind down. Those might be famous last words, because, you know, you wake up and you see Channing Tatum has addressed Dave Chappelle's controversial remarks about the trans community, and you're like, of course Channing Tatum did. CNN writes, on the Instagram stories portion of his verified Instagram account, Channing Tatum reposted video of Chappelle's 2019 speech at the Kennedy Center to accept the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. Tatum added his own statement to it. I understand that Dave is a very dangerous person to talk about at the moment. I understand and hate that he has hurt so many people with the things he said. Any human can hurt someone, usually because they're hurt. But any human can heal, and heal others the same. This little piece, the Mark Twain speech, healed me back in the day. I can't forget that. And I teased yesterday, Stevie Wonder wasn't the weirdest part. That's the headline from a piece on Medium from Akilah Hughes. Akilah wrote, about a month ago, a photographer I follow on Instagram posted a special code to buy tickets to an Untitled Chappelle event at the Hollywood Bowl on October 7th. With the pandemic not quite over and stir craziness at an all-time high, and the chance to do something exclusive seemed like a gift from the before times. But then there was that whole Netflix kerfluffle, I'm paraphrasing there. As the days went on and the special was released, as I sat through Dave's storytelling and ranting on a fixation of now 3 different specials, I grew more and more annoyed. I've been a fan of Dave Chappelle since I saw Killing Them Softly, specifically the joke about Oscar the Grouch and how crappy everyone on Sesame Street treats him. But Akila went and said, I knew it wasn't going to be a stand-up set or the Netflix special, so I was honestly curious about what it actually was. Was he going to come out as trans? Was he going to do a DJ set? I live in LA, you never know. Jeff Ross came out and did a pretty solid 5 minutes on his adopted German Shepherds, then decided to roast some volunteers from the audience, which, fine. But there was a guy in the front who was disabled and a huge Chappelle fan, and Jeff Ross went in on him, presumably as some sort of FU to Twitter. But I'll tell you, in my kind of crappy seats, no one was laughing. We were all kind of like, why is he doing this? It was like that Key and Peele sketch, except the joke was not that Jeff didn't want to roast the man. I'm not sure what the joke was. Cruelty? From there, the documentary started. It was about the Ohio shows Dave did last summer. The doc is quick, exuberant, and fun. Watching Donnell Rawlings fall in love with paddling a canoe with his son down the river, that on its own is a masterpiece. It's a glimpse at the Chappelle we all want him to be, and maybe who he actually is. Poignant and eloquent about race, laughing at himself and the absurdity of a city council Zoom meeting to stop these shows, being proud of his kids, and using an over-the-top means to make these shows happen. Following the show, Dave came out. There was enormous applause, because again, the documentary was great. Instead of just being happy that a bunch of people risked COVID to watch a movie at a concert venue, he had to continue his boring tirade about Twitter and ABC and NBC and whoever else. You know how influencers will get on their IG stories and complain about the algorithm and you're like, I don't care, that's not why I follow you. That's what it was like, but IRL, he seemed so small in that moment. Like, what a big night. Your family's there. You're seeing a lot of the comedians from the doc, presumably for the first time since the Ohio shows, and you're still angry that anyone would say something about your opinion. Why do you have to parade Stevie Wonder out to decry cancel culture? Yes, this did happen. It was so weird. He was like, I'm blind and I don't care if people make fun of me, which is good, I guess, but completely irrelevant. And nothing but love for Stevie, but there's no way he knows what the F any of this is about. Do we think Stevie Wonder's just sitting at a keyboard, fingers blazing about social justice warriors and cancel culture and being politically correct? Really? He could have just said, thanks for coming. I'm happy you all came to see my film. And then let Snoop do his thing. I even feel like Lizzo's twerking was half-assed because giving her whole ass would have sent the wrong message to her fans. Nas did like 35 seconds of a song and bluntly said he wasn't being paid and stopped performing, and then Dave continued ranting while the finale fireworks went off, and it was just weird. We don't hate Dave. Dave isn't canceled. He's making more money than God to complain on stage that anyone has the gall to voice an opinion and that it's held in esteem either the same as his. It's boring. Like, I want to love Dave. It's hard as a fan of his good work to watch his decline in his older years, growing more curmudgeonly at the same rate as his biceps grow. It's corny watching old dude comedians whine all the time that it's harder now for them. Bitch, it's the only hard thing in your life, and it's not hard. And if you weren't your kid's father, they'd probably be pretty embarrassed that you were tripling down on this. So your joke didn't land. Did you die? Because a lot of trans women did. And that is your comedy news for today. Follow this show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your shows. Instagram is at Daily Comedy News. Would love to hear from you on the Facebook group, Daily Comedy News Podcast on Facebook. See you tomorrow.